Hello everyone, good morning or good afternoon. Today I'm going to review our Monday starter for this week. It was like March 4th, I believe, is when we started this. And if you don't have this already written, please write it. For the first one, it says describe the transformations and then fill in the table. So I'm reading from right here. Describe the transformation, fill in the table, and then graph. So first I'm going to describe the transformations. So here I have my A value. I'm going to underline it in red. Here I have my H value, here I have my K value. So on the side, I literally want you to put on your paper, A is -2, which means that A is going to be reflected and stretched. So the graph is going to go down and it's going to stretch. So it's going to be like, it should look like skinnier than the parent graph. The parent graph is x squared. And then our H value, which is our second value, is 1. So we would say H is 1, which means that it's going to shift the graph right 1. And then we have our K value, which is our third value. Our K value is 5. And that means that it's going to shift the graph up 5. Sorry, let me undo that right now. Okay, so that means if K is 5, that means the graph goes up 5. Remember, I should have written this for you at the beginning. So remember, our vertex form is y equals a x minus h squared plus or minus k is right there. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm talking about our a, h, and k. All right, so the next step in the instructions is to fill in the table. So I like to work the least amount to get my results, right? So for my x values, I'm going to try to use easy numbers. I'm going to use positive numbers, and I have to include at least one negative number so that I have a good, accurate sketch of the parabola before I graph it. And somebody in my 5th period yesterday, I think it was Josue, he was like, what's the point of doing all this? And the whole point is to find points. And no pun intended. The whole point is to find points for the parabola so that we can draw an accurate sketch. That's the whole point. To find points so that we can find points for the parabola and sketch the parabola. Okay? So here I'm going to input, I think in all my classes yesterday, we decided on 0, we decided on 1, we decided on -1, and we decided on 2. You don't have to choose those numbers if you don't want to. I just choose those numbers because to me they're like some of the easiest numbers to plug in into my original function. Now, another thing that we easily forget is this equation is in vertex form, right? It's already in a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. So we know the vertex. Look at where your h value is. Your h value is 1, your k value is 5. That's your vertex, 1, 5. So that's where the parabola begins, right? So look at your table. You have 1 here. So obviously 5 goes there. 1, 5. And we know that just by looking at the function. So let's go plug that in. 1, 5. 1, 5. That's the easy one. And then yesterday, if you were copying what I did on one of the boards, I think I plugged in -1 for every single class. So I'm going to plug in -1, this right here, into my function. I'm going to do the math. And then whatever my result is, I'm going to put on the blank next to it. And this is where some people are like, this is too much work. And I just want to remind you, all you're doing is plugging in and doing basic multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. It shouldn't be that much work. If it feels like a lot of work, that's probably because you haven't done a lot of work. So you got to put in the work now. So I'm going to plug it in. My original is y equals -2, x minus 1 squared plus 5. Now I'm going to plug in -1 right there where the x is. So let's rewrite it. Y equals -2, -1. Copy everything else, -1 squared plus 5. Now, some people said that this was 0. This right here, -1 minus 1. My dear, that is not 0. -1 minus 1, that means you have 2 negatives. So that's -2. Let's rewrite it. Y equals -2. And then inside, you coincidentally have -2. I'm going to write that in red so you can see what happens. And then plus 5. Now, -2. I'm asking the class right now. I know I'm recording, but -2 squared, what is that? 4. Thank you. That's +4 because it's -2 times positive. I'm sorry, -2 times positive. -2 times -2. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. Negative 2 times 4 plus 5. And again, that 4 is right there. Now I'm going to follow basic laws of addition and subtraction. Negative 2 times 4, that's negative 8. And then keep that plus 5. Negative 8 plus 5, class, what is that? Negative 3. So now this negative 3, I'm going to put in my chart. And that's negative 3. Now I asked everybody else to do the same. So I'm going to plug it in for you, and you're going to finish the math problems. I'm going to do it on the side, maybe on the, I'm going to drag it a little. And I'm going to write it in yellow. So you have y equals negative 2, x minus 1, squared, plus 5. Now you're going to plug in x equals 0. Because remember, we have 0 here. So we're going to plug it in here, see what our math is, and then plug in our result right there. And then we're going to do the same thing for 2. So go ahead and pause the video, do this, and I'll do it quickly. So go ahead and do it right now, guys. All right, so I just set up my equations. So I'm going to plug in 0 everywhere I see x. So I just rewrote this, but notice how I haven't written x because I'm going to put 0 right there. So if you did this on your own, I should see this on your paper as well. Now I'm going to write this, and I'm going to do the 0 minus 1. So negative 2, and then inside 0 minus 1 is just negative 1, and copy down everything else. And now negative 1 squared, I'm looking at this. Negative 1 squared is 1. So I'm going to rewrite that with 1. Y equals negative 2 times 1 plus 5. And then that negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Y is equal to negative 2 plus 5. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So wherever 0 is on my chart, I'm going to put 3 right there. That's another point on my parabola. Lastly, I'm going to plug in that 2. I already wrote it, but now I'm going to plug in the 2 right there where the x would go. 2 minus 1 is just that, positive 1 squared. Keep the plus 5. Keep the minus 2 outside. 1 squared is just 1. But you still got to multiply it by that negative 2 and add 5 to it. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus 5. Negative 2 plus 5 is, I see people telling me, and it's 3. So when I plugged in 2, I got 3 as a result. Now I have 4 points. So I'm going to plot them. I have 0, 3, which is right here. 1, 2, 3. It's kind of small, but right there. I have 1, 5, which is right there. I have, wait, that's not. Sorry, I started to doubt myself. So yeah, 0, 3 is right here, 0, 3. 1, 5 is right here, 1, 5. Negative 1, negative 3 down here. 2, 3 is right here, 2, 3. And if you remember, this is the vertex, right? The vertex we said was 1, 5, right? So the axis of symmetry, remember, axis of symmetry is whatever the x value is. It's 1. So the axis of symmetry, please make sure you draw this, is this line right here. So now let's draw our parabola out. And it is facing down, and it is stretched. So it's going to look somewhat stretched and skinny like that. That's our parabola. Oh, that color is hard to see, so I'm going to try to do it in yellow. I don't know if that's any better. Yeah, I think it's a little better. No, it looks worse. All right, let's do it in red. I think you guys can see that a little better. And I think that's it. So that's what you were supposed to do for number 1. Number 2, oh my gosh, that's a whole other beast. Let me pause the video. All right, so the parent function is the same in our unit, x squared. So let's plug in a positive number, 0, and a negative number. Let's plug in 1, 0, negative 1 into the parent function. So make sure you're writing this. So let's plug in 1 here. What's 1 squared? Class, what's 1 squared? 1. Thank you. You're awake. Let's plug in 0. What's 0 squared? 0. And then what's negative 1 squared? 1. It's kind of a trick question, but negative times negative is positive. So the parent function looks like this. 1, 1, 0, 0, and then negative 1, 1, like this. So they want you to acknowledge that the parent function is just here, x squared. Make sure you write this and you draw it. That's the parent function. It says state the vertex for this new equation. You guys did this all last week. What's the vertex of this problem right here? 4, 0. I heard somebody whisper it. 4, 0. So my vertex for my new equation is 4, 0. Remember I told you this is one of the points. So put 4, 0 here. You already have one. 4, 0. And that's going to be our new parabola. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is right here. That's our new parabola. Now let's think of easy numbers to plug in. A 0, a 1, a negative 1, maybe a negative 2. Let's just plug them in. So we have 1, 0, 1, no, negative 1, and negative 2. We're just going to plug in those numbers. So let's plug it in our heads. We could do this in our heads. We don't have to do all this work for this one. 1, let's plug in 1. 1 in here. What's 1 minus 4? 1 minus 4, what is that? Negative 3. And then what's negative 3 squared? 9. 9. It's okay. It's 9. All right, let's plug in 0. What is 0 minus 4? Negative 4 squared. What's negative 4 squared? 16. And then what's negative 1? Let's plug it in. What's negative 1? I'm going to plug it in here. Negative 1 minus 4. Negative 5 squared. What's negative 5 squared? 25. Okay, now let's plug in negative 2. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is 36. Whoa, so we have some really big points here. But let's try to plot some. So we have 4, 0, and we have 1, 9. 1 is right here. 9 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 would be like over here. So, and this is our axis of symmetry, right? So our other point would be like over here. So if you're drawing it on your paper, it probably looks better. It's going to look something like that. That's all you had to do for these. Plug in some numbers, plot some points, draw the new parabola from the parent graph. You were supposed to tell me the axis of symmetry, which is x equals 4. X equals 4. That's the axis of symmetry that we drew right here.